Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. Thank you for coming back to work with me. I'm sure you're all thrilled to be here. Today, this is going to be for March 20th assignment. You're going to be assigned questions 5 through 9 in the multiple choice packet, and then this question 2 in the short answer packet. So if you'd like to go through it with me, I'd be more than happy to show you how to do all of these. What I'm planning to do for the multiple choice is go through how to solve these the proper way, and then talk about some strategies or some tricks to either check your work or to make sure that you're doing things correctly and you have the right answer. So for question 5, this talks about, it's a word problem, and then as you can see, the answers are 2 different equations that they set up. So let's read the word problem and then talk about, through process of elimination, which ones we can get rid of. So Alicia purchased 8 half gallons of ice cream for $3.50 each, and P packets of ice cream cones for $2.50 each. She purchased 14 items and spent $43. Which system of equations could be used to determine how many of each item Alicia purchased? So my first strategy here is money goes with money. So what I want you guys to do is locate all the numbers that have a dollar sign next to them in that word problem. So they have 350, 250, and then the 43 has a dollar sign with it as well. All of those numbers should be in the same equation together. So if you can see on the top here, A, money, 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 so that one's okay. Same with B, those are all money numbers. Notice in C, it's money, money, and then the 14. That was not one of my numbers that represented money, so that's gotta go. The same with D. That's got to go, okay? And then the next strategy is just to pair each number up with the appropriate variable that it goes with, okay? So the 350, because that's the only difference between these two. The 350, they were using to describe H half gallons of ice cream. That's how much those cost. And then the 250 was being used to represent P packages of ice cream. So that should go with the P. So 350 should be next to H, which it is here, and it's not here, so that's bad. 250 should go next to the P, which it is here and not here. So that's why we can cross out B, and our answer is A. Okay? So while it seems like an overwhelming word problem, just match up the numbers, okay? And money goes with money. Question number 6. So this says if f of x is equal to all of that, what is the value of f of 8? I'm going to show you a different strategy than I did for yesterday's question. That's very similar. For this one, I'm going to show you the strategy. So this still is the same thing, that f of 8 means that x is equal to 8. Remember that it used to say f of x, and now it says f of 8, so x is equal to 8. The strategy I'm going to show you guys is this f of x really means y equals. So if I plug all of that into my y equals and go to my table, all I need to do is find where x is equal to 8, find what my y value is, okay? You could plug 8 in for all your x values like we did yesterday, or you can do this way. Both will get you hopefully the right answer if you do it right. So, hope you can all see my calculator here. I'm gonna go into my y equals, and I'm gonna go ahead and plug in just the equation with the x's, okay? Don't touch the 8 just yet. So I'm gonna plug in alpha y equals 1/2 x squared minus, make sure you use this minus parentheses, I guess I could put these next to each other, 1/4. And feel free to pause me at any time if I'm going too quickly, okay? I'm trying to make these videos not super long, so I am going kind of quick. So if you ever need to pause and rewind, feel free to do that. It's always an option, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is go into the table. So I'm gonna hit second table and go to where x is equal to 8. So you gotta go down a little bit. 27 is my answer, and there it is right there. So the answer is C. So the strategy here is to plug equation into y equals and go to the table. Okay? All right, moving right along. Question number 7. So this one, it says this expression is equivalent to, I want you to box in the word equivalent. This is going to be important in 1 second when I show you the trick to check yourself, but this question should be pretty simple to solve as well, okay? When you have a situation like this, you always want to distribute first, okay? So in this term, it would be 3x squared minus 3, and then remember the negative, that's a parenthesis. It's kind of copied bad, but the negative needs to be distributed into each term as well, which is just going to change all the signs. So minus x squared plus 7x minus 10. And then when you go ahead and combine your like terms, 3x squared minus x leaves me with 2x squared. The 7x has nothing to combine with, so I'm just going to drop it. And then my minus 3 minus 10 is minus 13. Now, this question, so the answer is B. This question came right off a Regents exam. They know the mistakes you're going to make. So if you made one mistake, you might see it here. Don't just assume that you're right. You should always check yourself. So when you see the word equivalent, what that means is this whole situation right here, this whole expression, should be equal to this expression if I plug them both into my calculator. So I'm going to plug the top one into y1 and the bottom, my answer rather, into y2 and check to see if I'm right. So check for a match. So let me show you what I mean by that. In my y equals, in my y1 I'm plugging in the question. So the 3 parentheses, be really careful when you plug this in. You don't want to make a mistake. Then minus your x squared minus 7x plus 10. So that's in my y1, that whole thing. And then I'm going to plug this into my y2, my answer, to check if I'm right. Minus 13. To check if you're right, you go to the table, and your y values should all match, which they don't. What did I do wrong? 3x squared minus 1. Oh, I forgot my parentheses. That's kind of important. How come you guys didn't tell me? Just kidding. Okay, go to the table, and they do all match. Phew. Okay, so when they all match, that means you are correct. Just make sure you plug it in right, like I said, which I didn't even take my own advice. Okay. Moving on. Question number 8. Which equation and ordered pair represent the correct vertex form of the vertex for this equation? Now, you guys just did vertex form, so this should be kind of fresh in your head. So let's go, I'm going to go over this with you again, and then I'll show you how to check yourself if you did not want to do all this work, which I actually would suggest you don't do all this work, but just because we're learning everything we can right now, let's do it. So we have j of x. Now that's the same as y equals. They just named it j of x. It's the same thing, so you just use what they use. The first step to complete the square, to put it in vertex form, is subtract your 7 over. So j of x minus 7 equals x squared minus 12x. Now you're going to take your 12, negative 12 rather, take your negative 12, divide it by 2, you get negative 6, square it, that's 36, add that to both sides. So j of x minus 7 plus 36 equals x squared minus 12x plus 36. All right, this whole thing, negative 7 plus 36 is going to be 29, so j of x plus 29 equals, and this can be made, remember our trick is you can factor it just once and square it, and it's always this number right here, or half of your b. So minus 6, and then subtract over your 29, and your answer is j of x equals x minus 6 squared minus 29. Your vertex from there, because they asked that same question, and actually, so if you look here, my answer, I can eliminate these two because they were plus 43. So it's one of these two. Now they, of course, are going to try to trick me here. My vertex, do you remember, the number inside the parentheses always has to change sign. So it's always going to be whatever opposite of that. So that's minus, it's positive, and this one's negative. Now, there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong in this problem for you not to pick C as your answer. Okay, C is your answer because this is what the vertex is, and that's your equation, okay? My suggestion to you to skip over all this work and just plug this into your calculator and find your vertex, okay? We all know that the vertex is where the symmetry is. It's right in the middle. So your vertex is right in the middle of the symmetry when the y values start repeating. So I'm going to plug in this. I don't even have to do all this work. Plug in my y equals x squared minus 12x plus 7. Go into your table and find that symmetry. Now I happen to see it right here. But I want to go up, up, up until you start seeing your y values repeating. I have -4, -4, -13, -13. And they keep getting closer to that middle point, which is 6, -29, which is right here. It's the only vertex that I'm seeing that says 6, -29. So C must have been my answer then, okay? So the strategy, now that I've written in the strategy box, the strategy is to plug in your calculator into your y equals and look for vertex. You almost needed to know very little math to solve that problem. Okay, and then question 9 talks about, now this exact question we were gonna talk about Monday, but we didn't go to school Monday. So it's gonna be difficult for you guys to solve this using the appropriate math, but it still has a strategy that you should be able to solve this with. So a student invests $500 for 3 years in a savings account and earns 4% interest per year. So her money's going up. No further deposits or withdrawals are made during this time. Which statement does not yield the correct balance at the end of 3 years? So what that tells me is that out of these 4 options, 3 of them are going to be the correct balance. So 3 of them are going to be the same balance. 1 of them is going to be different. So I'm going to plug all these in my calculator. These are all just numbers, okay? And I'm going to see what I get when I plug them in. Now, earning 4%, okay, notice right here, this is minus. Minus does not mean I'm earning. This makes me think this is the wrong answer, but let me check using my strategy. So I'm plugging in 500 parentheses 1.04 to the third, enter, and I get this number of 562.432. I'm going to plug in 500, 1 minus 0.04 to the third power, enter. Okay, that's a different number. Notice that it's also lower than her original 500, so I'm assuming this is the wrong answer. But using my strategy, I'm going to just show you C. C is going to match one of these, okay, because it's going to be the right answer. So 500 parentheses 1 plus 0.04, 1 plus 0.04 times 1 plus 0.04, enter, enter. 562 again, it's that same number up here. And in interest of time, I'm not going to have you plug this in, but when you would plug it in, you would have gotten this number as well. So 3 of these are the correct answer. 1 of them isn't. It's the odd man out. It's B. Okay? So that's the strategy. The strategy is to not only just to think about it, like this should make sense to you. She's not losing money, so her money should not be less than 500. But the strategy is to plug all of them in and find which one doesn't work. So plug all options into calculator, find the, I'm going to call it the odd man out. That's not your answer, or that is your answer because it's the wrong answer. It's not yielding the correct answer, okay? All right, so those are your multiple choice questions and strategies for today. Let's move on to our other packet where we do 1 part 2 question, okay? All right. So it's asking me what type of functions given below. I have to read through this a little bit to figure that out. And then it's giving me some reminders, but we'll read that in a second. So Paul plans to have a rectangular garden adjacent to his garage. He will use 36 feet of fence to enclose 3 sides of the garden. The area of the garden in square feet can be modeled by this. Now I want you guys to highlight the math. That's the math, okay? There was a lot going on there, but really this is the math we're concerned with. This whole situation is explaining that equation, okay? Even the 36, it's right there, okay? So it's already been used in the equation. That's what I'm worried about. Now, it might not be obvious what type of equation this is, but if I were to go ahead and distribute, so I have f of w equals w parentheses 36 minus 2w. If I were to distribute this w in, I would get over here a w squared, right? I'd actually get minus 2w squared. Anytime I have an exponent, anytime I have a variable that's being squared, that's a quadratic equation. Usually we see it as an x squared equation, but this is a w squared. It doesn't matter what variable they use, it's still a quadratic. This is going to either be in this direction or in this direction. It's going to look like a U most of the time. However, we're in quadrant 1, so it might look like a portion of the U, not the whole U, okay? So it says, reminder, when graphing a quadratic, there you go, spoiler alert, it was already there, you must look for symmetry. If the quadratic is only in quadrant 1, a real world problem, which is what we have here, only quadrant 1, you can only graph the positive numbers. So let me show you what that looks like when we put it in our calculator. So I'm just going to plug this in my calculator. Don't worry about distributing it. Just plug the original in. Remember, f of w means y equals. Okay, just different notation, but same exact thing as always. So I'm plugging that into my y equals. Plugging in, instead of w, we have to use x, parentheses, 36 minus 2x. And I'm going to look at my table. What this little reminder up here was telling me was that usually I have to look for the symmetry before I graph. However, since I am only able to plot positive numbers, then I just need to go starting from my first positive number I can plot, which is 0, 0, and to my last one. Now, when you decide the points to graph, take a look at what numbers they gave you, if they have given you a scale, and this one they have. My x values, or my w here, go up to 20. So that means I want my table, in my table, I would like my x values to start at 0, 0, which I already saw, and go to 20. Does that mean I have to write down all 20 points? No, you can skip around, as long as you have the important ones. Now in this case, we are going to have a vertex. So if there's a vertex, that's like a very important point, and it should always be in your middle 9 times out of 10. So my y values go up to 160 and then some. So these are going to get high. So don't worry about that. You can still plot those. All right, so I'm going to skip around. I'll go every 2 maybe, unless my vertex is an odd number, which I can see it is. So I'll do 264. 4, 112. And you can plot all these numbers. Don't think that you cannot, but I'm trying to save you time. 8, 160. Now notice what happens here. At 8, 160, of course, that looks to be where my symmetry is. So I have 8, 160, 9, 162, and then it goes back to 10, 160. So my vertex is 9, 162. That's a really important point. I must plot that one. So I'm going to put that in there. And then I'll do 10, 160, 12, 144. Notice how these numbers are matching. Okay, they should be. 14, 112, 16, 64, 18, 0. Okay, so 18 was my last number, not 20. As long as you get back down to the bottom, then you're good. All right, so let's go ahead and plot these. 0, 0, 2, 64. These are going up by 10s, so just do your best to estimate. 4, 112, And if I'm going too fast for you guys, remember, pause me. And we can reconvene when you're done graphing, okay? 12, it's easier to graph on the way down because they all match up with the other side. Or they should. 16, 64, 18, 0. So there's my parabola shape. Graph that guy like this. Okay. So once you have this graphed, you do want to label your X and Y axes, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I didn't leave any room on my Y, but my X axis is W, really. So they said W is the width in feet, so I'm labeling that width in feet. And did they say what this is? They didn't say what F of W is, did they? No, but they did tell me here that the area of the garden can be modeled by this. So this is the area of the garden. So I know I wrote in here, but you can label here, area of garden. Okay, that will be helpful when we answer this question below. But first, let's practice changing the window, okay? This is something that your calculator, this is a skill that you're gonna need throughout math all the time, not just for algebra. So practice with me because it is important. So my X min, first I'm just gonna get everything set up. My X minimum, so here's my X axis, I'll highlight it in yellow. My min is my lowest point, so it's 0. My max is my highest point is at 20, okay? The scale is what they're jumping by, so each one of these is worth 1. So you can keep your scale as 1, that's what it already is in your calculator. My Y min, so Y is the orange axis here. So that's my Y. Starts at 0, goes all the way up to, what would that be, 200? And the scale, what is each box representing? It's going up by tens. All right, so I'm gonna change my window to match that. So to do that in my calculator, you hit the window button. It's right here, window. Okay, you're changing these numbers to match. So X min 0, X max 20, X scale is already 1, so you can keep it. X min 0, or sorry, Y min 0, Y max 200, Y scale is 10. And then when you graph it, it will match what I have here, which it does, okay? So that's a good sign. So that's always good to know, especially if you were ever looking for your vertex, you would need to expand your window so that you can see the whole thing, all right? So that's important, and look at that. I actually didn't even read that. Steps to finding your vertex in your calculator. So we are looking for our vertex. So I'm gonna do it this way. Now I know what my vertex is, I've found it already. It's this middle point, right? That's my vertex. But just in case it wasn't in my table, the way to find it in your calculator is you hit the second button and hit your trace button. Second, trace. This vertex, remember vertexes can be minimums or maximums. Since this one is at the top, it's your max point, okay? So you're gonna go to max. You have to go, it says left bound, you have to scroll using the left and right arrows, scroll a little to the left of the vertex, enter. Scroll right now of the vertex, hit enter, and then just hit enter again, don't guess. And it tells me, sometimes it gives you this number that's like super close, it's 9, okay? You always just round that. So it's 9,162, which is what we already knew. So the steps to finding it in your calculator, you put it in your Y equals, you go to second, trace, or calc, we call it both. And then it was your max. Okay, second trace, max. All right. Now this is a question that a lot of students struggle with, and this again, if you continue on with Regents after Algebra 1, your Regents questions always, they love asking to answer what something means in the context of the problem. When you see these words, I want you to think of this. Use the words they use. And what I mean by that is, Well, what were they talking about? So context of the problem, what kind of things were they talking about in this problem? They were talking about width in feet, and they were talking about area in the garden, okay? The width was your X or your W, it's the same thing. The area was your Y value, okay? So if I'm looking at my vertex, and my vertex is 9, 162, the 9 represents my X, the 162 represents my Y. I want you to now match these numbers with the words they went with, okay? So my X words were width and feet, or that's what X was representing. So when the width in feet of the garden is 9, is what that's showing, okay? So when the width is 9, so you want to make sure you match up the coordinate, the number, with the word, when the width is 9. Now let's try to match up my Y. The what is 162? Well, it says the area is 162. And it happens to also be the maximum area, so I can add that in there. The max area is 162. And you can even add like feet in here. It's probably appropriate to do that. So feet and feet. So I matched up my number, 162, with the word area, okay? That's how you answer questions in the context of the problem, matching numbers with words, okay? And the last reminder, it says, the vertex is the turning point and can be found by looking for the symmetry or by finding the max point or the minimum point using your calculator, which is what we just did. All right, thank you so much, guys, for tuning into our lesson today. I hope you are finding this not too boring at home. I'm sorry this is where we are, but this is the best we're gonna do for now, okay? So hopefully we'll be back together soon and we can learn in the classroom, but for now, you're gonna be learning at my kitchen table. Okay, thank you. See you guys soon, bye-bye.